The pride and joy of a nation brought to a screeching halt by a malignant crime. Copper theft has for years been the proverbial thorn in the flesh of companies like Transnet, Telkom and Eskom, leading to millions of rands in lost revenue every month. And with global demand for copper on the increase, the problem seems to be getting worse.
The biggest impact or the biggest influencing factor is the demand internationally. And you'll find that countries such as China, Korea, India and most recently Dubai seem to have been consuming the world's copper resources. In the last financial year, we had China consuming around 42% of the world's resources. And this is predominantly for the construction industry within China, telecommunications and the need for electricity. So this has been growing, and every time there's an international demand, the price of copper spikes, because that is how the market operates. And when the price of copper spikes to a point, it creates a lucrative market, especially for syndicates to thrive in.
The latest Saki copper theft barometer released earlier this week shows that 15.8 million rands was lost in July, up 10% since June, which saw a loss of 14.4 million rands.
The measure that we use, as I've stated, is a very narrow measure. One has to adopt the impact of copper theft on our economy to be many times the measures that we release every month. So we have estimated that in the current economic circumstances, where economic activity is fairly low, the impact of cable theft in any given year is around 10 billion rand. Previously, estimates ranged from 5 to 7. That was a few years ago. And if economic activity picks up, the impact on the economy annually, all other things being equal, could be up to 15 billion. But currently, the estimates are in the 10 billion rand ballpark. But this is a very difficult measure to quantify in the extent that consumers and businesses are impacted. One can't truly understand the extent to which a business may be impacted.
Gautrain commuters between Pretoria and Johannesburg have been forced to take buses twice since the route first launched earlier this month due to copper theft.
Everybody knows that we've had 2 cable thefts in a question of a week, so we are really looking at improving our security even more and addressing this at a very high level with the help of the South African Police Services, with the help of national security. So I think it's in hand.
Following the Gautrain incident, South African government and law enforcement services like the Hawks are calling for stronger measures to be taken against the criminals.
We need more policing. You see, if we can police like we do with liquor, I think we can cut the problem before things like Gautrain, have a problem. If we can start to police copper theft, we will be able to spend less resources on investigation. We will be able to prevent people from stealing copper cables. I know that in the Western Cape, for instance, the Gautrain, people have had some success. If we can have a partnership with the Gautrain as the police, we can talk together as stakeholders.
Business is also calling for stricter export legislation to effectively combat copper theft in the country.
Our view strongly, apart from the vigorous policing and business trying to get its house in order, the biggest impact is going to be on the export legislation. So in my view, the only person that can really eradicate this crime to a huge extent is the Minister of DTI, because he has powers over the export control. He decides what the measures would be, and he can issue directives in terms of that legislation. So it's not really a very long drawn out position. And all he has to do is, the legislation already has certain prerequisites if you want to apply for an export permit. By simply adding on as a prerequisite that if you do export stolen goods, the penalty will be 10 years or what have you, I think we're already going to start making way.
We have a strategy group that looks at this challenge. It's been a challenge that's been with us for many decades, and it's impacted Transnet, Telkom and Eskom to a huge extent, and of course, as we've discussed, impacted the economy to an even greater extent. The Gautrain representatives have asked to be part of our strategy group, and we would welcome them at our next meeting. The Gautrain experience is indicative of a risk that we've identified some time ago. The thieves operating in this area are fairly unusual in the sense that they do not fear striking the same target twice. So if a particular section of cable is subject to theft, and that section is not secured, they will attack that section again and again until it is secured. So it's quite an unusual behavior that accompanies the copper theft environment.